Ever get that feeling like you're juggling a million things at once? Trying to crush it in your classes, maybe thinking about joining a new club, all while trying to keep up with your friends.
Yeah, definitely. It can feel like you're being pulled in a bunch of different directions.
It's like we're constantly making these separate to-do lists for our academic life, our social life, everything else. But what if, and stick with me here, that way of looking at things is actually missing a really big connection?
Hmm, that's a really interesting thought. And it's a lot like what we're going to be diving into today. It's about moving beyond just looking at individual goals, especially in education, and instead trying to understand how they all work together, how they connect.
Exactly. And to help us on this deep dive, we've got a super fascinating article from the Educational Psychology Review called Goal Complexes,
Yeah.
a new approach to studying the coordination, consequences, and social contexts of pursuing multiple goals.
Sounds like a mouthful, but I think it gets at something really important.
Totally. Because instead of seeing your academic life and your social life as completely separate things, we're going to unpack this model called goal complexes. It's all about how your goals for learning and your goals for your social life are often intertwined, and how the people around you, your parents, teachers, friends, play a huge role in shaping those goals.
Our mission today is to really break down this whole goal complex idea.
Yeah.
We want to understand how it gives us a more integrated view of your motivations rather than just listing academic goals over here and social goals over there. We'll also explore how your social surroundings really influence these interconnected goals.
So it's not just about checking boxes, it's about understanding the why behind what we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Can we start with defining what a goal complex actually is?
Well, as the article explains, a goal complex is basically a framework for understanding how we coordinate all these different goals we have. But here's the really cool part. It suggests that a lot of times, your academic goals are actually the means to achieving your social goals, which are the ultimate end goals.
So you're saying academic goals are like stepping stones to social goals. Can you give an example of what that might look like?
Sure, imagine a student who's really pushing themselves to understand a difficult topic in class. That's a pretty clear academic goal, right? But the real motivation behind it might be to earn the respect of their classmates who they admire, especially if those classmates also value intellectual achievement. Or maybe it's about getting praise from their parents, which strengthens that feeling of connection and belonging within their family. In both cases, mastering the academic material becomes the way to achieve a deeper social need.
Ah, I see. So it's not just, I want to get good grades, and separately, I want to have a great group of friends. The goal complex idea suggests that maybe that drive for good grades is actually fueled by wanting that social connection or approval.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so interesting. The article points out that a lot of previous research on goals looked at them in these separate silos. So you might have studies looking at how study habits affect grades, and then completely separate studies looking at how social interactions affect well-being. But the goal complex model argues that it's not always that cut and dry. It suggests that to really get the full picture, we need to understand how these academic and social goals are linked.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if academic goals can be a way to achieve social goals, then what shapes those initial academic and social goals in the first place?
Well, that's where the sociocultural model comes in. This is another key part of the article. It basically explains how our social and cultural environment influences the development of both our academic and social goals. And as a result, it influences how those goal complexes take shape. It emphasizes the role of social agents in a student's life.
Okay, hold on. Who are these social agents?
Think of the people who have a big influence on a student's life. Their parents, teachers, and their peers.
Makes sense. So how do they actually shape those goals? It's not like they're giving kids a list of goals to achieve.
It's more subtle than that. It's about shaping their goal-related beliefs. They influence what a student believes is possible, what's important, what's valued, both in terms of their studies and their social interactions.
Goal-related beliefs. Okay, I'm following. So let's break it down by each group. How do parents specifically influence these beliefs?
Parents often have a big influence by emphasizing how important academic success is for future opportunities. They might talk about how doing well in school can open doors to better colleges and eventually lead to a more secure and fulfilling life. They're essentially connecting academic effort in the present with broader social or life goals like career success and financial stability.
Yeah, it's that classic work hard now so you can have a good life later message. And it links what you're doing academically today with a future social outcome. What about teachers? What role do they play?
Teachers can really shape these beliefs through the kind of learning environment they create in the classroom. For example, a teacher who really emphasizes teamwork and cooperation might foster the belief that academic tasks are also chances to connect with others and build relationships. They might design group activities where students have to collaborate, which links academic achievement with those positive social interactions and a sense of belonging within the classroom.
So a group project isn't just about finishing the assignment. It can also reinforce the idea that working together is a valuable part of academic success. And it might even make you feel like you belong in that classroom. Makes sense. And what about peers? How do our friends influence these goal-related beliefs?
Peer influence is huge, especially during adolescence. The social norms within a peer group, especially around academic achievement, can really impact a student's beliefs about what's considered cool or important. If their friends value doing well in school, students might be more likely to set academic goals to gain status and acceptance within that group. But if their friends don't really care about school, a student might downplay their academic efforts so they don't stand out or seem like they're trying too hard.
Right, it's all about fitting in and being accepted by your peers. And that can shape what kinds of goals a student prioritizes, both inside and outside the classroom. So we've got this idea of goal complexes, where academic goals often serve social ends. And we've got this sociocultural model explaining how parents, teachers, and peers influence the development of these goals. Why is it so important to understand this? What does it change about how we think about students and their motivations?
One of the key implications the article talks about is that it changes our whole understanding of what motivates students and drives their success. Instead of seeing them as either driven by a pure love of learning or purely by social needs, we start to see how those two things are connected in really complex ways. It suggests that to truly understand why a student is driven to succeed in school, we need to consider their social goals and their social environment.
It's like we're going deeper than just surface level goals. And the article also mentions something called methodological recommendations. What are those? What new research approaches might this goal complex framework suggest?
That's a great question, and you're right. The article doesn't give a step-by-step guide to new research methods, but it does make one thing really clear. If we accept that people often pursue goals in these interconnected complexes, then the ways we study them need to change too. The old ways of looking at academic and social goals as separate things might have missed some crucial connections and motivations. So the article suggests we need new approaches that can better capture these systems of goals, maybe by focusing on how students themselves see the links between their different aims.
So it's not enough to just ask students about their academic goals separately from their social goals. We need to find ways to ask about the connections between them.
Makes sense. So for our listeners, people who are all about getting knowledge quickly and effectively, what's the big takeaway here? What's the aha moment?
I think the aha is realizing that many of the things you work towards, things that seem purely academic, might actually be deeply connected to your social desires and needs. This gives us a more complete and probably more accurate picture of what drives behavior, especially in learning settings. It's like academic achievement is just the tip of the iceberg, and underneath are all these powerful social currents driving it.
Okay, so is it always this straightforward? Are there any nuances or important points the article brings up that we should consider?
Of course. It's never quite that simple, is it? One thing the article points out is that even when we talk about performance goals, wanting to do well or appear competent, there are actually different ways researchers have defined them. Some see it as wanting to master the material, which is a more academically focused definition. Others define it more as wanting to look smart or outperform others, which leans more heavily on that social aspect. And the article argues that these subtle differences in how we understand performance goals can actually lead to different outcomes for students.
Even within academic goals, there's a whole spectrum of motivations. It's more complex than it seems at first glance. And how does this goal complex idea help us understand the bigger picture of what students are dealing with? The article talks about how this approach helps us understand the complex sociocultural demands that students face every day. By realizing that their academic and social goals are often intertwined, and that those goals are influenced by their social world, we get a better understanding of the pressures and motivations they're juggling. It's not just about excelling academically or fitting in socially, it's about managing both at the same time and understanding how they influence each other.
It's like a constant balancing act. Okay, so now that we have a good grasp on what goal complexes are, what are the key takeaways? What are the implications for how we understand student motivation and behavior?
Well, I'd say the biggest takeaway is this. To really understand what motivates students, We need to move past thinking about academic goals and social goals as separate things. This goal complex model shows us that academic goals often serve as the way to achieve those bigger social goals. And the sociocultural model highlights the massive influence that parents, teachers, and peers have in shaping these goals and the connections between them.
It's all about understanding the bigger picture, the web of connections between what we want to achieve academically and how we want to be seen and connected socially. So for you, the listener, what's the so what here? How can you apply this to your own life?
Think about your own goals or the goals of people you know, especially in learning situations. Do you see any academic goals that are strongly tied to a desire for connection, belonging, or approval? Maybe it's about wanting to impress a certain group of friends or live up to your family's expectations. Seeing goals not just as individual ambitions, but as potential pathways to those deeper social needs can give you a whole new perspective on what drives you and the people around you. But then it makes you wonder, are there times when it goes the other way? When being really motivated academically actually leads to new social connections or changes your social standing? How would this model explain that? Food for thought, isn't it?
Definitely something to think about. And to leave you with one final thought-provoking idea, consider this. If so many of our academic achievements are linked to our social desires, what if we intentionally focused on building strong social connections and fostering positive social goals? Could that actually boost academic success instead of viewing them as separate or even competing forces? What if nurturing those positive social ties and shared goals was actually a powerful way to improve learning outcomes? That's something I'd love for all of us to ponder.
That's a great point to end on. It really makes you think about the potential of connecting those social and academic sides in a more intentional way.
And that's what we're all about here, getting you to think differently and see things from a new perspective. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure exploring this with you.